What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be talking about one of the more high-profile trade prospects or targets we've seen floating around in the NBA the last few days and weeks. Recently, there have been a few things coming out and saying he's going to remain with his team, and as you can see from the title and thumbnail, we're talking about none other than Zach Lavine, a couple-time All-Star, won a dunk contest. Maybe he shouldn't have, but that's besides the point. He's a great player, great offensively. He has made strides defensively, but he's still not completely there. And in my opinion, it is probably best for him to leave Chicago, because I kind of feel like Chicago plateaued last year, and we saw it with how much they struggled against quality teams. I mean, you can say they did miss Lonzo Ball, which in my opinion was, or obviously was, a big contributor in their offense and defense with playmaking, all of that stuff. But yeah, I believe Zach Lavine should probably end up leaving. Now, there have been a good bit of reports coming around lately that he's probably going to stay in Chicago, which I could see that as well. But I figured let's go ahead and go through a few teams, and I'm going to tell you my guys' thoughts on all these different situations. And I'll probably go in the order of the ones I like the least to the ones I like the most. I'm not sure how many I'll go through, maybe 3, maybe 4 teams that have been rumored in the trades for him. But I'm going to start out with the one I like the least. Now, this one could work theoretically, but it's the Lakers. Now, this is no hate on LeBron or anything. A lot of people hate LeBron. I honestly am kind of indifferent against him. I loved when the Cavs beat the Warriors. I was a big Ray Allen fan. Ray Allen's my second favorite player of all time, right behind Giannis. So I was very happy when he hit that game-winning shot in the finals against the Spurs. So even though LeBron and the Heat were one of the most hated teams, I was still supporting them just for Ray Allen. And yeah, that's the main reason I've never had a grudge against LeBron. It's just any player that goes and plays for LeBron. We saw it with Westbrook. We've seen it to an extent with AD. I mean, we saw it with Dwayne Wade, Kyrie. You know, a lot of these younger guys get with LeBron, and obviously not Russ as a younger player, but they want to be the leader, and they want to be their own scorer and their own playmaker and own player and all that. And as we know, LeBron likes to micromanage. He is the greatest player of all time. I mean, I was going to say the GOAT, but in my opinion, he's the GOAT right up there with Michael Jordan. I think they're both the greatest player of all time. And it's very hard to differentiate between them because of the eras just being so different. And I like to think that there's a MJ era as the GOAT, and LeBron's the GOAT of his era. So, you know, you got to kind of take it when you're playing with LeBron, because he's the best player since MJ. And he's going to be able to micromanage. He's going to make the moves that he wants. He had a big part in hiring Darvin Ham, a guy from Milwaukee. I loved him as an assistant coach. I hate to see him go, but I completely understand why they signed him. And as the Lakers or whatever team LeBron's on, they run through whatever he wants. And with Zach Lavine wanting a bigger role in a team, at least that's what came out from LeVar Ball, and something that I could easily see. He wants a bigger role and a more contending atmosphere. I just don't know if LA is the place for that, because, I mean, we have to imagine what that trade's going to be, and the few pieces they do have, LA is going to have to give up for Zach Lavine. I mean, you imagine it's going to be a Westbrook and maybe like a Taylor Horton Tucker and a couple of picks for Zach Lavine, but at the end of the day, if you're LA, that leaves you with very little once he comes into town. I mean, you have your big three, and you really have nothing else, and we've seen in the last few years, I mean, teams with the big three or big two and nothing else have not been successful all that well. And honestly, the NBA's turned from a superstar-built league to a league that really needs role players. They need good guys off the bench, and we've seen that be so instrumental in the success of teams in the playoffs. I mean, even now, Jordan Poole, Grant Williams, Al Horford, all of these guys, Andrew Wiggins, all of these guys are not stars that are playing a key role in both of their team's finals runs. So that's one of the main reasons I don't think the Lakers will be able to get Lavine. And I don't think it'd be a good fit for Lavine beside LeBron. I mean, they do have the same agent. Lavine's a great shooter, but I think he's a little too ball dominant to play with LeBron, especially with how much LeBron or how well LeBron can see the court and all that. I just don't know. I mean, there'd be some cool alley-oops, but that situation for Zach Lavine is my least favorite option for him. Now we get into, I'm probably going to do 3 of them. I've narrowed it down in my mind to the top 3 situations, so I would count the Lakers there. Second is kind of just a team that I'm like, okay, I could see him there, but I'm not exactly sure if it would be a good fit for him, and that is with the Dallas Mavericks. Now, this one hasn't been floating around everywhere out there like the Lakers one has, and the first one we're going to get into. The first one was really in the news heavy when it first got rumored or leaked. But the Dallas Mavericks, they've come short the few past years in the playoffs. I mean, Luka can only carry you so far. They need a good center play, and Zach Lavine doesn't answer those problems. But if you have a chance to get a guy like Zach Lavine, and honestly, if we're being realistic, it's probably going to involve Jalen Brunson and a few other guys. But Luka and Zach Lavine together would be probably a finals contending team just with how much Luka can carry in the playoffs. Even if we see Zach Lavine struggle a little bit, if he can provide that scoring just like or much at a higher rate than Spencer Dinwiddie has, then maybe they make the finals just based off of that trade. That'd be an interesting thing to see, but I'm not exactly convinced that Zach Lavine would want to play with a guy like Luka. He kind of seems like he fits a little bit more of a number one option role, and that's what he was in Chicago for the longest time, and that's kind of how he's become his star or into his superstar role. And that's kind of why I think he would want out of Chicago with DeMar DeRozan there now, playing like an MVP for half the year before they kind of had a collapse with injuries and all that. So I don't know if Zach Lavine would actually want to end up going to Dallas and playing beside Luka, just because of how ball dominant Luka is, almost to an extent like LeBron. But I do like this situation a little bit more than LeBron and the Lakers trade, because the Mavericks are in a much better position than the Lakers. And Zach Lavine, despite being a Bull, I have appreciation for him. I enjoy watching him play, and I think he has a good game. So obviously I'd like him to go to a better situation, and LA is just such a rough place to play for a player like him, or a player like anybody in general. And I think Dallas would be a lot more out of the spotlight. He can just go out there and hoop. He doesn't have to worry about the pressure per se. I mean, obviously there is pressure on every team, but he doesn't have that LA pressure on him. And him and Luka, if Zach is able to see and understand that he wants to take a lesser role, he is gonna be a number two option, but a guy that will get up a lot of shots just because of how much Luka play makes. That is a good role for him if he's going to be able to take it, and I could see him fitting in well in Dallas, but that is not my number one favorite spot for him. Actually, my number one favorite spot is the oldest rumor we've had. I believe this came out about a month ago. It feels like it was about a month ago, and that is the San Antonio Spurs. Now, when you think of the Spurs, you always think of guys that are built in San Antonio. They really haven't made huge trades. I mean, when you think of the Kawhi Leonard trade for DeMar DeRozan, they were forced into that one. Kawhi just simply didn't want to play for them anymore. They signed LaMarcus Aldridge from Portland. That didn't work out really in the long run. He had some good years there, but unfortunately for them, once he signed on, that was around the same time that Kawhi decided he wanted to be a diva all of a sudden, and he didn't want to play in San Antonio. So that kind of left them with a little bit of an interesting situation there. They forced to make the trade. They did it. And other than that, I can't really think of many instances where San Antonio guys were not built from within the program. I mean, you see guys like Devin Vassell, Keldon Johnson, DeJounte Murray has been there, and everybody wrote him off after tearing his ACL. Then he goes out and makes an all-star team. I mean, Greg Popovich is one of, if not the best coach of all time. They just develop players like crazy over there. And honestly, I think this would be the best situation for Zach Lavine. He goes in. He's not the greatest defender, but he can learn in that system. He can become a better defender, and he already has all the offensive tools to be a star player for the San Antonio Spurs, something that they desperately need. And as big of a DeJounte Murray fan as I am, I can imagine that front court right there if they're beside each other. I mean, Zach Lavine's got all the offense. DeJounte Murray can hold his own on offense now. He's improved so much, but he is one of the best defensive guards in the NBA. And if you put those two guys together, that'd be like putting Drew Holiday and Trae Young together. One of the best defensive point guards in the game with one of the best offensive point guards in the game. They kind of counteract and make a great duo right there. On top of that, you've got Keldon Johnson coming off of a record three-point shooting year and only seems to be improving. Devin Vassell can get there, I believe. Lonnie Walker can get there eventually. Still got young guys like Joshua Primo. Jakob Poeltl is becoming a above-average center, something that I never thought he would be. He's always been serviceable, and I always thought he would just be that. But he's been playing very quality minutes for the Spurs the last few years, and I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of teams are shopping, trying to bring him in return for some, veterans or some other prospects or picks for the Spurs to get. But you've just got to take all of that into account, and that's why I think Zach Lavine's best spot to go to if he leaves Chicago is going to be San Antonio. Now, at the end of the day, like I said, recently, the last few days, a lot of people are speculating that he's going to re-sign with Chicago, but I don't know how true that is. I don't know how true any of these rumors are. Just something that I'd love to talk about with you guys. Now, there were other teams I saw flying around. I saw the Hawks at one point. I saw the Trailblazers, which would be interesting. You know, they came out. The Trailblazers are going to try and be big buyers in this free agency market and get that second star that they lost when CJ McCollum left, which, by the way, great trade for the Pelicans. CJ went on to have an amazing season for them, and they didn't win the playoff game or the play-in game, unfortunately, but no, they won the play-in game. They didn't win the playoff series, but they still had a good trade out of that, and I think that's going to be good or even better once Zion comes back. That's another story for another day, though. But at the end of the day, I do think the best spot for Zach Lavine is going to be San Antonio, just with the system and how much he'll be able to grow as still a relatively young player in his prime. I think that's what would help him out the most. But I definitely could see him going to LA. Honestly, the least likely one, in my opinion, out of those three is Dallas, because just it's not as big of a market as he would probably want to go to. I mean, San Antonio is relatively small, so that's why I think he might end up going the LA route, but I think the Spurs situation is the best for him. How do you guys feel about this? If you're a Bulls fan, do you want to see Zach Lavine stay in Chicago? Obviously, he's kind of been a homegrown or a hometown hero there the last few years, even though they were terrible. They've just got to see him grow as a player and a person, and I know it'd be hard to see him go. So how do you guys feel about all these rumors and leaks? I know it's difficult as a Bulls fan or just an NBA fan just seeing a guy leave his team like that, but at the end of the day, it's a business. It happens. So how do you guys feel about this? Where do you think Zach Lavine's going to be going? If you enjoy these commentary videos, hit the like button. If you enjoy them a lot, make sure to hit subscribe. It helps me out so much. Thank you guys for watching this one. I'll see you next time.